Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. I'm Maja Tait, your NDP candidate for Esquimalt, Saanich, Sooke. Here with me today, I have Colin Plant, NDP candidate for Saanich Gulf Islands. As well as Alistair McGregor for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford. We're gathered here today on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples of the Songhees and Kosapsan nations. These lands have been stewarded with care and respect since time immemorial. As we talk about the future of our planet and the need for targeted climate action, we recognize that Indigenous leadership and knowledge must be central to this work. And so today, to kick things off, I'm so pleased to introduce Laurel Collins, candidate for Victoria.
Thank you, Maja. And thank you all for being here. I'm Laurel Collins, the NDP candidate for Victoria. And here in BC, we are living the impacts of the climate crisis. Devastating wildfires, extreme flooding, multi-year droughts, and deadly heat domes. And while working people are trying their best, struggling with the cost of living while trying to make greener choices, the biggest corporate polluters, they're doing the opposite. They are increasing their emissions, making massive profits, all while collecting billions in public subsidies while they do it. New Democrats are ready to do things differently. We will eliminate the federal consumer carbon tax, but not without a plan to make sure that we make up the emissions gap. We will strengthen and raise the industrial carbon price. We'll close the loopholes and make sure that the biggest corporate polluters pay their share. It has never been more important to take climate action. But working people shouldn't have to do it alone. That's why we are going to support them with retrofits to lower their costs and their emissions. This plan is about fairness. It's about real accountability. It's about building a greener future for everyone, not just those at the very top. And leading this fight is someone who never backs down when it comes to standing up for people. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to the leader of Canada's NDP, Jagmeet Singh.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, you can just tell why we need to elect these incredible fighters. These are the folks who are going to stand up for you. These are the folks who are going to be your voice in Ottawa. So you got a sense of the team that we have here in the south part of the island. You got to elect these folks to send them to Ottawa to fight for you. We are up against a serious challenge, as Laurel was talking about. We've got real threats. The climate crisis is real. We're experiencing it. And we also have some serious threats from Donald Trump, who's attacking our country. And the way we win this fight against the threats of Donald Trump is not by making Canada more like the United States. That's not how we do this. The way we win this fight is by doubling down on who we are as a country, by doubling down on the values that make us who we are. We believe in taking care of each other. It's a Canadian value. It's why we have things like healthcare. We also believe in taking care of our country, taking care of the land, the air, and the water. Protecting our environment is what makes us Canadian as well. So when we fight back against Donald Trump, we got to fight back by defending what is dear to us, what is true to who we are. And so today we're talking about our plan to defend our environment, to protect our country. Here is just some of the first steps that we would take as a New Democrat government. We would remove the carbon tax, the consumer carbon tax, and take off that burden from everyday families. But we would make sure big polluters pay their share. This is very important. And one of the things that we want to do, and the part of the plan I want to talk about today, is the fact that Your hard-earned public money is being given to highly profitable oil and gas companies. They're receiving massive subsidies every year. That has to end. New Democrats would once and for all end those subsidies. They must end. And we would use that money instead of giving it to highly profitable oil and gas companies. Instead, we would give supports to everyday families, because that's who we're in it for. We're not in it for the billionaires like the other parties. We're in it for you and your family. So we would cancel those subsidies and use that money to give everyday families the ability to retrofit their homes, to lower their energy costs, to save them money and reduce their emissions. That's a plan that works for people, not for the billionaires. So our plan would help 3.3 million homes get retrofitted. We would support low-income families with free upgrades, free retrofits to their homes, and then the remaining would be loans and grants to help higher-income families. Over 10 years, our plan is to get 3.3 million homes retrofitted, lowering their costs, lowering their emissions, helping families out. And what are the other plans, though, from the other parties? Well, Mark Carney still believes in giving away your hard-earned public money to highly profitable oil and gas companies. He would continue to do that in his plan, and that is wrong. Pierre Poilievre's plan is to let big polluters to pollute as much as they want. He wants to eliminate entirely any barriers, any limits to how much they pollute. That means unlimited pollution into the land, water, into the air. That is clearly the wrong plan. Our plan is about taking away from the highly profitable oil and gas companies and giving to everyday people, to helping out families. And that's why New Democrats are in it for you. That's why our plan is one that's always going to be in it for you. Donc, on a des grands défis devant nous. On a des crises climatiques qui frappent fort. Et on a des menaces de Donald Trump. On ne peut pas gagner ces batailles contre Donald Trump en devenant plus comme les États-Unis. On doit renforcer nos valeurs, renforcer les valeurs qui sont chères à nous. Donc, au Canada, on prend soin les uns des autres. Ça, c'est une valeur canadienne. En même temps, on prend soin les uns des autres, on aussi prend soin de notre environnement. On protège notre environnement et on doit le faire. Donc aujourd'hui, je peux parler de notre premier pas, de notre plan pour protéger notre environnement. On va éliminer la taxe carbone sur les consommateurs. On va continuer de faire payer de juste part des grands pollueurs, d'arrêter les grands pollueurs de continuer de polluer. Et on va éliminer finalement les subventions pétrolières. Ce sont des entreprises qui font des profits massifs. On ne doit pas donner des gros cadeaux aux ces entreprises. On ne doit pas donner votre argent aux ces entreprises. On va éliminer ça. Et on va utiliser cet argent pour aider les familles avec les rénovations éco-énergétiques. Ça va réduire les coûts d'énergie pour ces familles, mais aussi ça va réduire les émissions. Ça, c'est un plan qui aide les gens, pas les milliardaires. Et c'est quoi les plans des autres partis? Pierre Poilievre et les conservateurs veulent laisser les grands pollueurs de polluer autant qu'ils veulent. Ce n'est pas la bonne chose à faire, c'est un mauvais plan. Et le plan de Mark Carney, c'est de continuer de donner votre argent aux ces grandes entreprises pétrolières. Aussi, je pense qu'il a tort. Notre plan, c'est d'aider les gens, pas les milliardaires. Ça, c'est pourquoi on est de votre bord, de votre côté. Merci. With that, I'm ready for any questions you might have.
Merci beaucoup. On va maintenant passer à la période de questions. Une question et une relance. We'll now take the questions from the press. One question and one follow-up. We'll begin with Janice McGregor, CBC.
Hi. Welcome, all of you. It's hard to imagine that your NDP base wouldn't vote for you this time, given all the things that you have achieved and the things that you've listed off you would achieve. But with this surgence of the fear factor, the people may feel they have to vote for a larger party in order to deal with Trump, et cetera. How are you going to hold on to that NDP base and grow it a little bit in order to prevent any loss of seats?
Thank you. I think it's a really important question. we know that folks are worried about what Pierre Poilievre is proposing. Despite the fact that he's having big problems with his campaign, there seems to be a lot of infighting that's being reported, that his campaign seems to be falling apart from the inside because they're more busy fighting each other than they are fighting for Canadians. But if you are worried about Conservatives, it is clear here on the island, New Democrats beat Conservatives every single time. It's New Democrats that will beat Conservatives. And it's really about who do you want fighting for you. You know, with the storm that Donald Trump presents, we are in this storm. You don't have to choose between a leaky roof or a cracked foundation. The Liberals have let you down. And without New Democrats, we know that they won't act. New Democrats, we showed that in the previous minority government. Fighting for you is what we do every single day. Electing a New Democrat is electing someone that's going to fight for you and your family. We are only focused on your needs. We're not in it for the millionaires. We're not in it for the billionaires. And proof of that is our plan today. Ending the fossil fuel subsidies, going to highly profitable oil and gas companies to give families the ability to retrofit their homes. It shows you whose side we're on. The fact that Mark Carney wants to continue to give these companies massive subsidies shows you he's not really in it for you the same way. And Pierre Poilievre, the Conservatives, they want to let polluters pollute as much as they want. So if you want someone on your side fighting for you, elect these amazing folks behind me. They're going to fight for you. They're going to put your family first.
My follow-up, and sorry, I should have introduced myself, Mary Brooke, Island Social Trends, local to the island here. So speaking of local candidates, and when some people who might be confused about how to vote in this election, they hear about strategic voting. How can voting for the local candidate actually help the NDP do these things, do these things for people in the House of Commons once you get there, where they're kind of being told that the bigger parties need to have these majorities?
Yeah, well, just look at what happened recently. Because you elected 25 New Democrats, we saw the biggest expansion of our healthcare in a generation with dental care that has now helped millions of Canadians get their teeth looked after. That would never have happened but for New Democrats. Sending a New Democrat means you get someone that's going to fight for you, not for the billionaires, not for rich CEOs, but for you and your family. Sending a New Democrat means we were able to achieve pharmacare. That's going to be here in BC. People are going to get free diabetes medication and devices. 25 New Democrats did that. Imagine what we could do if you sent more of us to Ottawa. If you elect enough of us, and you give me the honor of being Prime Minister, I will fight for you every single day. Electing New Democrats will make a big difference in your life. So I encourage you all, wherever you live, vote for a New Democrat. That's the only way you're guaranteed to have someone that's actually going to be in there for you. With the threat of Donald Trump, and the threat to workers, the threat to our environment, the threat to our very way of life, who's going to be putting you and your family first every single day? Who's going to make sure that when there's negotiations, we don't let our environment be on that negotiating table? We don't let workers' rights get on that negotiating table. We don't let our public universal health care be on that negotiating table. New Democrats are the only ones you can count on. They're going to be in it for you.
Thank you very much. Now, Janice. Janice McGregor, CBC.
Yeah, good morning. I want to talk to you about the meeting you're having with BC Premier shortly, particularly on a day where there's going to be a vigorous debate at the legislature over the future of the provincial carbon tax scheme. What is the relationship like right now between the provincial NDP and the federal NDP when it comes to climate policy? Is there any space between you at the moment? And how does that figure into your ground game in this federal election, particularly on Vancouver Island, where there is still a significant Green vote? One of the candidates behind you, I think, is running against Ms. May. You know, in BC, there is space between New Democrats and Greens. So can you just talk to me about the significance of this meeting and whether you are aligned with the provincial party on this climate policy?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the meeting with Premier Eby. New Democrats are all committed to fighting back against a climate crisis. We want to protect our environment, we want to protect our land, our water, our air, and we're all committed to that. And we're committed to doing that in a way that also protects working people and supports middle-class families. And so that's our shared vision. And then the candidate you mentioned, that's Colin Plants, and we're looking forward to him becoming the next Member of Parliament in this upcoming election. New Democrats have shown you again and again, we are committed to fighting for you and your families, fighting for the working class, for the middle class, and also deeply committed to protecting our environment. You've heard from Laurel Collins, our critic on the environment, the passion that we have as New Democrats for protecting our country and our planet. And we're continue to put forward that vision. And so today's plan is a real clear couple of first steps that we're going to take, bold steps that show you how we are committed to fighting for a future where my two daughters can grow up and still be able to enjoy this beautiful country, this environment that you see around you. It's something we hold very dear as Canadians. And the only way we protect it is by making it a priority. And New Democrats are committed to that. Oui, je suis tellement... je suis excité d'avoir ma rencontre avec Premier ministre Eby. On partage des valeurs néo-démocrates, de défendre notre environnement. C'est quelque chose qui est tellement important pour nous. Vous avez parlé du candidat qui va défaire Elizabeth May, ça c'est Colin Plant. Et c'est parce que nos valeurs sont les valeurs des Canadiens, sont les valeurs des gens qui habitent ici à l'île Vancouver. On veut protéger les travailleurs et les travailleuses. On va protéger monsieur, madame, tout le monde. Et en même temps, on veut aussi protéger notre environnement. Et on a montré notre plan pour le faire. Un plan, aujourd'hui, un premier pas de notre plan qui parle de comment on va éliminer les subventions pétrolières pour investir davantage dans les rénovations éco-énergétiques pour aider monsieur, madame, tout le monde. Notre vision, c'est une vision pour défendre notre pays et ça inclut les travailleurs et notre environnement.
And to follow up, you're headed to Edmonton tonight, where again carbon pricing has been a huge issue, including for the provincial NDP in Alberta. Is the federal party in alignment with the provincial NDP in Alberta? Are you going to meet with Mr. Nenshi when you're in Edmonton? And in particular, are you aligned on the industrial price on carbon, which you know, I know at the provincial level has been very key, and you know, it may be the provinces that sort of set that in certain jurisdictions, and I'm just wondering if you can speak to that.
Well, New Democrats, as you can imagine, being a party that reaches across the country, will have many shared values and then some regional differences. We're presenting our vision for the country as the federal New Democrats, and our vision is one where we share with all New Democrats that we want to put people first, not the billionaires, not the millionaires. And we are showing that in every announcement that we make. The difference between us and Mark Carney, the difference between us and Pierre Poilievre. Today our plan is to end the fossil fuel subsidies and use that instead to help families retrofit their homes. A fossil fuel subsidy the Liberals have put in place and have kept in place for nearly a decade, and a fossil fuel subsidy that Mark Carney wants to continue. He wants to continue to give your public money to highly profitable oil and gas companies. I think it's clearly the wrong thing to do, but he wants to continue to do it. It shows you he's just not in it for you the same way as we are. We're committed to ending that subsidy and investing in people so they can lower their energy costs, lower their energy bills. And when we go to Edmonton today, we're going to share that vision with the people of Edmonton, how New Democrats are in it for you. If you want someone that's going to fight for you in these uncertain times, who can you count on to always put you and your family first, not put rich CEOs or billionaires first? That's us. That's New Democrats. Wherever you live in this country, you need a New Democrat fighting for you.
Thank you very much. Now, Rachel Ayo, CTV.
Good morning, everyone. Today, Pierre Poilievre is talking about building a national energy corridor and fast-tracking building more pipelines, while saying they would still uphold environmental assessments and consulting Indigenous communities. Just wondering what you make of his announcement today in contrast to yours.
Well, one of the things that we're seeing from Pierre Poilievre is that in the face of a Donald Trump threat, Donald Trump's threat is making people say, okay, maybe we need to make Canada more like the United States. So maybe we need to stop having the same concern around the way we consult with local communities before we make a decision. Maybe we need to, water down our environmental protections. Maybe we need to ignore the rights of Indigenous people. I reject that approach. in building the Canada that I imagine that Canadians want is a Canada where we are proud of the fact that we are different than the United States. We're proud of the fact that we actually want to work with communities, make sure there's public buy-in before we move forward with an energy project, that we want to make sure that the highest environmental standards are being met, that we work with Indigenous communities for energy projects. The project that I favor, where we could build a nation-building energy project, is an east-west energy grid, where we connect and electrify our country, where we bring low-cost, affordable electricity, lower people's electricity bills, have it easier to access electricity for business and industry and manufacturing companies, so that we can build a climate where we are strong as a nation with clean energy that's affordable. That's the type of nation building that I want to see happen.
And Liberal leader Mark Carney said this morning that he still has confidence in his candidate, Paul Chang. I'm wondering what you make of that and what message does that send?
Yeah, I think this is a really important question. I want to reflect on this for a moment. Just for context, Paul Chang told a group of supporters that they should collect a bounty on the head of his Conservative candidate. That is chilling to hear. That is scary to hear that. And in the context where there are many Canadians living in our country that left behind oppressive governments, oppressive regimes to come to a democratic nation where they could be free. And they came here hoping they could express their thoughts, criticize maybe what's going on in their countries of origin and say what's going on is wrong, human rights violations are wrong. And people come to this country and continue to face harassment, intimidation. People from South Asian communities, Iranian communities, people from China are constantly living in the ongoing fear that they're being harassed, they're being threatened, their families are being threatened. And to hear a candidate for the Liberal Party effectively say, go out and get the bounty on my opponent's head, it is really scary to hear that. For those folks, it's really disturbing. And for Mark Carney to say that I'm going to accept this candidate really sends a message that that type of commentary ultimately is acceptable because he's not removing him as a candidate. Ultimately saying that for the folks out there that are worried and afraid, the folks that are living with that constant fear, you know what? You're less important to me, and what's more important to me is my party. He's putting his party ahead of his country in that case. I think that's wrong. And I think Canadians should find that wrong as well.
Thank you very much.
Donc le contexte, c'est le fait que Paul Chang a encouragé ses supporters, Paul Chang c'est un candidat pour le Parti libéral, a encouragé ses supporters de recevoir un montant d'argent qui est sur la tête d'un adversaire politique. Un montant d'argent mis en place par un gouvernement étranger. Je pense que ça, c'est inquiétant, tellement inquiétant, c'est grave. Et le fait que Mark Carney finalement dit qu'il va continuer d'appuyer son candidat, ça veut dire pour les familles, pour les gens qui ont peur d'ingérence étrangère, qui vécu cette ingérence, qui vécu l'intimidation, harcèlement des gouvernements étrangers, ça veut dire que vos inquiétudes sont moins importantes et son parti c'est plus important. Il a choisi de protéger son parti au lieu de son pays. Et je pense qu'il a tort de faire ça.
Merci. Thank you. Now, Daryl Greer, Canadian Press.
Hi, you've been talking about the differences between you and your opponents, but when it comes to the carbon tax, all three parties seem to have aligned against it due to its perhaps perceived unpopularity. Why not differentiate yourself by committing to it and admitting that it was perhaps an effective policy to combat climate change, even in the face of its unpopularity?
Well, we've said that we support, or we are going to remove the carbon tax off of consumers, but there are some massive differences between us and the other parties. The fact that we want to eliminate entirely the fossil fuel subsidies, and Mark Carney wants to continue to give your hard-earned money to these highly profitable companies is wrong, and that's a big difference between us and them. The fact that Pierre Poilievre wants to let big polluters pollute as much as they want is a big difference between us and them. We want big polluters to pay their fair share. We don't want big polluters to be able to pollute as much as they want. We want to protect our water and protect our land and protect our air from this pollution. We want to build a Canada where our kids can grow up and know that they're going to be safe. And so there's a big difference between the parties and us. Ultimately, though, if you look at the parties' differences, it's about whose side they're on. If you look at our approach to say we're going to stop this subsidy to these big oil and gas companies, it's about saying we're not in it for them. We don't want them to get big handouts. We want you to get support. We want everyday families to be able to retrofit their homes. And that's really the difference between us and them. We're in it for you, and Mark Carney seems to be in it for big polluters, to give them big subsidies, and Poilievre wants to let them pollute as much as possible. Those are the differences in this election.
And can you elaborate?
OK. Il y a des grandes différences. Oui, on veut enlever la taxe carbone sur les consommateurs, mais il y a des grandes différences entre notre position et la position de Mark Carney et de Pierre Poilievre. Mark Carney veut continuer de donner des subventions aux entreprises pétrolières. Ça veut dire votre argent public, votre argent aux grandes entreprises pétrolières. On veut éliminer ça. Ça, c'est une grande différence. On veut utiliser cet argent pour vous aider. Au lieu d'aider les grandes entreprises, on veut aider monsieur, madame, tout le monde. Et Pierre Poilievre veut laisser les grands pollueurs polluer autant qu'ils veulent. C'est une position complètement différente que la nôtre. On veut arrêter les grands pollueurs de continuer de polluer.
And can you elaborate and perhaps explain exactly how this border carbon adjustment will work? Who will it apply to? How long will it be in place? Is it a temporary measure in the face of these tariffs, or is it something that you're going to just put a blanket across the board?
Sure. We can give you more of a technical briefing for more details, but in broad strokes, the idea is to have more fairness when we're trading with other countries that don't have an industrial price on pollution. Our approach would be if a country is trying to bring in products, like China, for example, that wants to bring in products to Canada, and they don't have a price on pollution, then there needs to be an adjustment to account for that. They can't be competing against Canadian companies who do have an industrial price on pollution and have an unfair playing field. So as long as a country doesn't have a similar price on pollution, there would be a carbon adjustment. So that would account for countries that don't actually put a price on pollution.
Thank you. Now, Marco Vigliotti, iPolitics.
Hey, so you discussed, your reason for keeping the industrial carbon pricing component. Pierre Poilievre has said we need to remove the entire regime, partly as a way to protect Canadian industries from disruptions or the threat of disruptions caused by the American tariffs. Considering that logic, do you buy that Canadian businesses need that certainty, need that protection? It would be caused by potentially removing the industrial carbon pricing to deal with the tariffs?
I think that there are things that we need to do to strengthen our industry in Canada, to strengthen and support different sectors in our country, and we need to be targeted about that. We need to fight back against the tariffs. We need to remove those tariffs. We need to fight back against Donald Trump. And ultimately, when it comes to pollution, we don't want big polluters to pollute. We do need to have limits on that. And Pierre Poilievre is saying, no limits. Pollute as much as you want. Poison the water, poison the air. No limit to that. Clearly, that is the wrong approach. Our approach is one to say, yes, we're going to support our Canadian industries. Yes, we're going to fight back against the tariffs of Donald Trump, but we're not going to let big polluters pollute as much as they want. No, it's wrong. Non, je n'accepte pas l'approche de Pierre Poilievre. Ce qu'il propose de faire, c'est de laisser les grands pollueurs polluer autant qu'ils veulent. Oui, on doit faire face à Donald Trump et on est prêt de faire ça. On est prêt d'appuyer les secteurs frappés par les tarifs. On est prêt d'appuyer nos industries au Canada. Mais on ne pense pas, on ne croit pas que c'est une bonne idée de laisser les grands pollueurs polluer. Non. Ça, c'est pourquoi on va garder des limites sur la pollution des grands pollueurs.
And for my second question, I know it's early in the campaign, we're only starting week 2, but I'm curious about your own benchmark for success. If your party loses seats in this election, if you lose your own seat, will you step down?
My focus in this campaign is on what's in front of us, which is the serious threat of Donald Trump. And the question in this election is, who's going to be in it for you in that fight? Who's going to make you and your family the priority when you're worried about the threats to our economy, the threats to our jobs, the threat to our very sovereignty? And in the future negotiations that might take place, who's going to make sure they stand up for you and your family? Not someone that's going to make concessions to appease the billionaires, but someone that's going to say, you know what? Healthcare will never be on the table. Our environment will never be on the table. Our workers, our way of life will never be on the table. That's New Democrats. That's who you can count on. Donc, la question clé dans cette élection, pour moi, je cible l'action devant moi. Et dans cette élection, la question clé, c'est, dans toute la menace de Donald Trump, qui va se battre pour vous? Pas pour les milliardaires, mais pour vous et votre famille. Et quand on a des négociations, qui va dire non, on ne va jamais avoir des concessions sur notre environnement, notre santé, notre système de santé, nos travailleurs, nos valeurs qui nous tiennent chères? Ça, c'est l'NPD.
Last question, dernière question. Juliane Lapointe, Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh. Vous venez de dire la question qui sera là pour se battre pour vous, qui sera là. Bon, ce qu'on entend de la part de militants, d'anciens candidats aussi, c'est qu'ils ne veulent pas de vous pour se battre contre Donald Trump. Ils ne vous voient pas comme quelqu'un capable de se battre, de tenir tête à Donald Trump. Est-ce que votre temps est venu, vous croyez, après la campagne, de céder votre place?
À ce moment, on est dans une campagne électorale et je cible l'élection devant nous. Et dans cette élection, je peux dire avec confiance que le seul parti, le seul chef et la seule équipe qui va cibler vos priorités chaque jour, c'est nous, l'NPD. Je suis confiant de dire ça. Les autres partis ont montré leurs priorités. C'est clair pour Mark Carney, avec l'environnement, ce n'est pas vous la priorité. C'est les grands pollueurs, c'est les grandes entreprises, c'est les entreprises pétrolières, parce qu'elles continuent de donner votre argent et ces entreprises. Moi, je veux annuler ces subventions. C'est clair dans cet exemple que je suis de votre bord et que Mark Carney, c'est de bord des grandes entreprises pétrolières. Donc, dans cette élection, ça continue d'être la question clé. Qui va se battre pour vous? Qui va vous défendre? Pas les PDG, pas les riches entreprises, pas les grandes entreprises pétrolières, mais qui va défendre vos intérêts. Dans tous les défis et les menaces de Donald Trump, qui va être de votre bord? Ça, c'est nous, l'NPD.
Mais pendant que vous dites ça, il y a d'anciens stratèges néo-démocrates qui regardent votre campagne, qui l'évaluent, qui connaissent comment on fait une campagne et qui se disent ce qu'on voit, c'est une campagne qui manque d'oxygène. C'est une campagne où on a de la difficulté du côté du NPD à imposer son message. Malgré ce que vous nous dites ce matin, le message ne semble pas résonner auprès des Canadiens. Pour l'instant, selon les sondages, et ça, vous ne pouvez pas le nier, les chiffres comme ils sont en ce moment, est-ce que vous prenez une partie du blâme pour ces chiffres-là qui sont à un niveau qu'on a rarement vu dans l'histoire de votre parti?
Ça continue d'être la même question et je le répète, pour moi, dans cette élection, la question clé, c'est qui va se battre pour vous? Et je suis confiant quand je dis ça, parce que j'ai vu les autres partis, on a regardé leur plan. Le plan n'est pas un plan qui vous favorise. C'est un plan qui favorise les ultra-riches, un plan qui favorise les géants immobiliers, un plan qui favorise les entreprises pétrolières. Notre plan et notre vision, c'est un Canada où on défend les gens, les travailleurs et travailleuses, monsieur, madame, tout le monde. Et on va continuer de partager ce message. On a une vision claire pour le Canada et on a des gens qui appuient cette vision. On est fiers de ça. On est fiers de ce qu'on peut faire pour les gens, ce qu'on peut faire pour ce pays. Donc, si vous êtes n'importe où dans ce pays et vous voulez quelqu'un qui va se battre vraiment pour vous et votre famille, le choix, c'est l'NPD.
Merci.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very
Ceci
much.
conclut la conférence de presse. That concludes the press conference. Have a nice day. Bonne journée.